Check the 40 show.
Welcome to the Fantasy 40 podcast. We are back. Myself, Andrew Burke, John Dabari, and Matt Walker. Today is my favorite time of year because we are doing the NFC East breakdown. As some of you may know, my favorite team's the Cowboys, Walks is the Eagles, and John likes to shit on all of them. So
I say John hates them both.
Yeah, this should be a very interesting episode. We are going to try to keep it fantasy relevant. We are going to give you the free agent rookie ads, breakouts, busts, sleepers, and your predictions. But before we get started, just real quick, how you doing, Walt?
Doing great, man. I mean, see, we got you on the on-again, off-again weekly schedule, so it's nice to have you back for this NFC East. You know, it wouldn't be the same shitting on the Cowboys without you, so, you know, I'm right. Happy that you're here. And like you said, this is going to be by far the most fun episode of the entire divisional breakdown.
Right. John, what about yourself?
I hate this division, so that's why I like it. Always hated all four of these teams since I was a small child.
I think Walk will agree with me. I'm pretty sure we can go ahead and pencil you into the Redskins fans because you got a couple guys on there I know you like, or at least one.
You said the name.
Oh, am I not allowed to say it? Hey, I'm
Washington football franchise, or
I don't give a crap. So, I mean, it's funny. I don't even want to get into it. I almost started going in my rant. But anyways, so we will open things up in no particular order, but we are going to start in the Big D. John, free agents and rookies, what's going on?
Just so we're clear, it's a definitive particular order. It's by alphabetical order, so don't act like you randomly pick the Cowboys first. Go ahead, John.
When we did the NFC South, I led into that saying how shitty it was from a draft perspective for offense. What's funny is this division is garbage via free agency. There's really not much free agency action here. But the Cowboys did nothing on offense in free agency. They actually only brought in some defensive guys, Clinton Dix and Gerald McCoy, who do nothing for us for fantasy purposes. On the offensive side of the ball, CeeDee Lamb fell in their lap in the first round, and then they did nothing again on offense till the seventh round when they took Ben DiNucci, everyone's favorite quarterback in the seventh round. Who's Ben DiNucci? But other than that, that was all they did in the draft and nothing in free agency. So not much for Dallas this offseason. Obviously, their focus was getting Dak to a long-term deal, which they failed miserably at, and here we are.
John, I'm very surprised that you didn't reference Aldon Smith and the perpetual reinstatement of Randy Gregory, since you have affinity for discussing the defensive players ad nauseum. You know, the Cowboys, if for nothing else, love giving players second and third chances.
Yes, we do. Let's see. I don't know. I was pretty happy with the draft all around as a fan, but offensively, we added CeeDee Lamb. Got pretty excited about that. Let's go to the breakouts. I don't want to go first because I think we might all agree here, so I'll just lay it out there. I'm going with Tony Pollard. Zeke's still going around the 3 to 4 range, running back wise in the ADP. Pollard's all the way down at 42 with guys like Damian Williams, Jordan Howard, A.J. Dillon, who's a rookie, Rashad Penny. So if Zeke goes down, he's the next man up. Not that Zeke is injury prone, but you just never know. And I think they're going to incorporate him a lot more into the offense under McCarthy because that's what he does. So I'm going to pick Pollard as my breakout walk.
Yeah, you were right. I'm right there with you. And Zeke might not be injury prone, but he's idiot prone. So, he just want to do some things to potentially get suspended over and over. The most recent was, on a live stream saying that he was high as shit during a gaming interaction. So, we might not be illegal. I'm not really sure how that's going to play out. Probably nothing. But Tony Pollard was running back 53 in 2019. And, it was unlimited touches, only 101 touches, but he was effective with them. And I do believe that McCarthy's going to try and bring a little bit more balance to this offense. So I'm going to expect more than 101 touches for Pollard in 2020. And he only had 20 targets, 15 catches for 107 yards and 1 touchdown. Very low, in my opinion. He was very effective running the ball, but behind that offensive line, that shouldn't shock anyone. I just think there's more room for him from a target perspective in 2020. So Mike Clay only has him projected for 109 touches overall, so only 8 more than the previous year. I think that number is going to be in like the 120 to 150 range at the end of the day. I don't think they're going to run Zeke into the ground, especially in some positive game scripts. So I'm with you on Tony Pollard. He has an RB3, I don't want to say ceiling, even without Zeke being hurt, and he definitely has top 15 if Zeke goes down.
I will complete the trifecta, and I also have Pollard as my breakout candidate. But you both missed out on the obvious, which is Mike McCarthy sucks. So just based on McCarthy being the guy who gives the backups too much work and makes us miserable when you own his starters, the last 8 seasons McCarthy is a head coach, his RB2 has finished an average of 54th, which I thought I would have guessed would have been a little higher, to be honest. But Pollard's a better receiver than most of the guys he's had over the years as his number 2. So, yeah, I think RB47 currently ADP in Dynasty leagues. I don't see how Pollard doesn't grossly outperform that. I think he gets a significant bump in workload. I think Zeke takes a step backwards because of McCarthy. So just knowing what I know about that coach and how he makes me sick to my stomach, I'm going Pollard by default.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to. And, I'm looking at the numbers you were saying, walking, it's crazy. He's averaging over 5 yards a carry, just barely, but still, you got to get that guy the ball more. Let's go to our busts, and I'll lead out here as well. This is all by ADP as well. I mean, you got Amari Cooper going around the 9. Wide receiver 9. CeeDee Lamb is being drafted as, where I'm seeing it, is wide receiver 19. And then you got Gallup at 33. CeeDee Lamb is being way overdrafted, I think. I think for this year, you can expect a Dez Bryant type situation, maybe some punt returns, a few streaks down the sideline. I mean, I know there's targets that vacated, but I just don't see him stepping right in and just dominating, especially where he's being drafted at. So I'm going to have to use him as a bust because that is way too early for me. What do you think, Walk?
Yeah, I wanted to go and see what FF Calculator had for your boy CeeDee Lamb as far as his draft position. 39 at the 905 in redraft. So wide receiver 39, so not even a wide receiver 3. But I'm still with you. With this virtual offseason, not really getting to work with Dak as much. Cooper and Gallup have an established rapport with him. So while I do believe he's the best receiver of the 3, it was going to take some time to acclimate. But I went with Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper had the second fewest targets of any wide receiver inside the top 12 in PPR scoring last year, 119 targets. And I know he was injured for a good portion of last year, but he played in 16 games. And I just wrote, I can't see that number increasing with the addition of CeeDee Lamb. So we just have to stay uber efficient to really return a top 12 fantasy finish in 2020. And I just don't buy it. They're going to spread the ball around more. And you're drafting him to be your wide receiver 1, unless you're going, heavy RB. I don't like it. There's going to be volatility with him. He's going to have some 2 touchdown games, but he's going to have some 20 receiving yard games as well at the end of the day. So not the type of guy that I want to build around.
Little Amari Cooper hate to start my day. I can't tell you how. Today's going to be a good day. I love it. I went with bust. I'm going to keep it with the running back and take another opportunity to shit on Mike McCarthy. Zeke is going 3rd overall, RB3 in current Dynasty ADP. McCarthy's RB1. Do you guys know what his RB1, his average finish has been? And he's had decent running backs for fantasy.
Yeah, I know it's not Zeke level because we're talking about largely Eddie Lacy and early career Aaron Jones. And what do you have? Some Dorsey Levens in there and probably some other guys I can't even remember.
RB26.
Yeah.
And I mean,
in Green Bay, his average was RB26. That's what you're telling me?
I went over the last 8 years. There could have been a little some blips early in his career, but RB26. They did have Starks, who was the backup and outscored Eddie Lacy one year as the number 2, even on limited touches. But it's just not in Mike McCarthy's DNA to volume the shit out of Zeke. Zeke has had the most touches out of anyone over the last 3 years, even more than McCaffrey. So I just see his volume going down. It's been what McCarthy has done his whole career, and I just don't see Zeke living up to that this year. He's big on my do not draft for redraft. Obviously, in Dynasty, you're going to hold him. He's still going to be probably a low-end RB1, but in a startup, I'm not wasting that draft capital on him because I think with McCarthy there, he's never going to see that value.
Yeah, the only season that Zeke didn't have 300-plus rushing attempts was his suspension-shortened 2017 season. I mean, yeah, he's carried load average projected to get 292 again this year on FF today. Yeah, I could see that number coming down as well. McCarthy likes to spread it around, and for all, and Pollard's a breakout. This touch has got to come from somewhere, so I can see Zeke's touch being impacted.
There you go.
Okay. Sleeper time. You can go first on this one, Walk. I'm pretty curious to see what you think here.
All right. A lot of these I started writing 2 because since there's always so much to go around. But since I get to lead off, I'm going to go with the guy I want to talk about. And it's Michael Gallup, currently being drafted as wide receiver 33 at pick 7.09 per FF calculator in PPR drafts. He's being just thoroughly disrespected. And while I agree that his dynasty stock's taken a little bit of a hit with the CD Lamb pick and the fact that Cooper is going to be in town for at least 2 years, I'm just believing that Dak trusts Gallup. And he was the more explosive receiver of the two last year, in my humble opinion. So we're talking about Amari Cooper being drafted as a top 12 receiver and Michael Gallup sitting down there at wide receiver 33. And there wasn't a huge difference between those two individuals last year when it was all said and done. So give me the 20-player dip in draft position, and I'll gladly have Michael Gallup as my wide receiver 3 flex all day in redraft.
I pick up what you're putting down. John, what about you?
I kind of cheated. I put none and then Gallup with a question mark. The thing with Dallas is everybody knows who's here for fantasy purposes. There's really no one that's going to sneak up on you. Even Pollard, who would be the sleepiest of all these guys. Savvy dynasty owners have been on Gallup for a year, been on Pollard for a year anyway. So there's not much sleeping room when you Blake Jarwin, but again, everybody knows Witten's gone and he's stepping into the role. So there's not much here to be sleepy on. But I did Gallup with a question mark maybe. Basically everything Walk said. His ADP just makes him a value. People are sleeping on him because of Lamb landing there, but I love Gallup, and I'll talk a bit about him more in the predictions.
The difference between Gallup and Amari Cooper last year was 13 catches for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
That was the difference. Even the targets were kind of the same. So it was just the quality of targets. Gallup gets a lot more deep shots than Amari Cooper does.
Very true. Well, John kind of punched my guy in the face, but I'm going with Blake Jarwin because if you're not a Cowboys fan and don't follow him, he's still kind of going under wraps. He's the 20th tight end on my board, going off in Dynasty ADP. And if you're one of those guys that like to fill your running back and wide receiver spots and wait on tight ends, he's still a younger guy, and he's finally coming to his own. Pretty athletic, and I think Jarwin is an easy draft there at 20th tight end, so you don't really have to force one of those guys like Hunter Henry, Zach Ertz, or Evan Ingram, in those early rounds if you don't want to. So I like Jarwin there as my sleeper.
Yeah, Jarwin was my other guy. And in redraft, he's tight end 17 going to pick 13-12. So again, even in a redraft format, if you want to go hammer and running back, wide receiver, go get you a quarterback and all, you can see Mr. Jarwin still sitting there in the end of the 13th. For you. And I agree. I don't think his upside is as high as most people probably want to believe. I don't think he can be a top 8 tight end just because of all those other receivers we've already talked about and the pass catchers out of backfield. But he's free, so he can have weekly tight end 1 upside.
Oh, for sure. Prediction time. You were saying we're going to wait on Gallup. Go ahead, John.
I'm going Gallup outscores Amari Cooper. Walk kind of mentioned it last year. Gallup had 66 catches for 1,107 yards with 6 touchdowns. Cooper had 79 catches for 1,189 and 8 touchdowns. Gallup's trending upward. From his rookie year, he went 33, 507, and 2. The 66, 1,106. His trajectory is absolutely going upward. Cooper is kind of probably at his ceiling already. I'm thinking Cooper takes a little bit of a step back. Gallup takes that next step forward, and Gallup's their number 1. And they easily move on from Cooper in 2 years, and it's the Gallup and Lamb show.
All right. Well, I'll kind of piggyback on yours. I was going Gallup too, but mine was pretty simple. I'm just saying he's getting double-digit touchdowns this year. Walker? I
went with Tony Pollard and said that Tony Pollard is going to have 900-plus combined yards and 6 touchdowns in 2020. And as a point of reference,
love it.
Our perennial whipping boy, Ronald Jones, was running back 25 last year with a stat line of 933 and 6. So that's scratching the low-end RB2 threshold. And I think it's well within his outcomes because they should be using him more as a receiver.
All right. Well, I got out of there unscathed. Besides you guys shitting on Amari Cooper, but
I think the beauty of this is the name Dak Prescott was not even mentioned. Literally, even by you one time, because I think there's a fucking chance that he is not long for your Dallas Cowboys. So you're already trying to distance yourself a little bit when he comes knocking at Jerry's door with just a piece of paper that says $50 million per next year, and Jerry just laughs at him and slams the door in his face.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the Eagles.
Ben DiNucci.
We're going to the Philadelphia Eagles here.
Got that red rocket locked up.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. I forgot. We picked up Andy Dalton. He didn't say free agent, man. That's a huge pickup. So John had to. So we're gonna move on to the Eagles. And John, what did they do in the draft and free agency this year?
The Eagles did absolutely nothing via free agency on the offensive side of the ball. Brought nobody in. In the draft, though, they did attack offense with several picks. Jalen Reagor in the first, one of our favorite wide receivers. Surprising a lot of people in the second, drafting Jalen Hurts, given that they have Wentz there. Was pretty head-scratchy for a lot of people. Luckily for them, no one gave a shit because everyone still want to talk about the Packers and their even more head-scratchy quarterback selection. Then John Hightower, wide receiver in the fifth, and Quez Watkins, wide receiver in the sixth. I like all three of the wide receivers, actually. I don't know what we're going to get out of them in year one, but I like them all for dynasty purposes.
I feel as though we heard that recently. Rundown, but definitely better the second time around. And listen, I'm going to dive right in because these are my Eagles, so I'm going to talk first, and I want to talk glowingly about them end to end. And for my breakout, it's the aforementioned Jalen Reagor. Mike Clay has him projected as the Eagles' leading wide receiver with a stat line of 51, 641, and 5, which isn't impressive. I'm saying 6,806 with the upside for more for Mr. Reagor. He's going to come screaming out of the gates his rookie year, and he could challenge as the top rookie wide receiver in 2020.
Did you say 6,800? That'd be a record.
60-800 dash. But no, it's not out of the realm of possibility for Mr. Reagor. I mean, the kid is explosive. You're going to put 6,800 on the ledger. I'm in. Full Reagor.
For my breakout, I'm going to just try to predict the future because I don't like anything on this roster. I'll be a little bit more bullish on the Eagles than Walk was to my Cowboys. And he's not even on the roster yet. I think once he gets reinstated, the Eagles have to go out and get Josh Gordon and help out this offense. I don't care about Reagor. I mean, yeah, the tape looks good, but it's still Philly. So I don't even see a breakout. I already consider Miles Sanders a breakout, or I'd jot him in there. That's one guy I do like on the Eagles. But other than that, man, I don't like anything on this roster right now. I mean, Godert's already kind of sought after as well. He would be another candidate. So I don't know, Walk. I think Reagor is your only choice on this team to be a breakout at this point.
The entire offense is new. So just name a player other than Miles Sanders and Carson Wentz can break out. Sorry, Zach Ertz. I mean, all of our wide receivers are in essence going to be new or could break out. There's options there.
Oh, yeah. I'm scrolling through the ADP, and I can't even find the guy to see if he's still on the Eagles roster. Is Matt Collins. Maybe he comes back from.
He is not. He was on the Dolphins last time I checked.
Gotcha. So I can't even like him anymore. John, you got one?
Similar to the Cowboys with the sleeper, and you had said it too. The Eagles are full of names, and a lot of them have had fantasy success in the past, with the exception of the rookies coming in. So just by default, I ended up going Miles Sanders. He was RB15 last year, which as a rookie probably is already considered a breakout. His ADP, though, is currently running back 7 in dynasty leagues, which I think is a little high for my liking, but the upside is there. The main concern is Peterson's history of a running back by committee situation. They got Boston Scott behind him, who's probably going to get a little bit more work than we've seen in years. I think Sanders' role in the passing game keeps him a little safer than other Eagles backs we've seen under Peterson, but just by default, Miles Sanders, because there's not a lot of options here for guys who can break out.
Listen, we had the Miles Sanders conversation last year where I said, let's cut the bullshit of the Doug Peterson doesn't use a workhorse back. He has had limited backs during his entire time with the Eagles. I mean, we were talking about busted knee, Jay Ajayi past his prime, Ryan Matthews, LeGarrette Blount, 2 down, Jordan Howard. He has not had a player even close to Miles Sanders' caliber his entire tenure as the Eagles head coach. Miles Sanders is going to touch the ball 280 plus times in 2020. Bell cow.
Better hope so.
Ding, 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 fucking ding. This is a fucking bell cow.
I mean, that was a seamless transition there, Walk, because we're going to our bus next, and he better touch it 280 times because my bus is Mr. Carson Wentz, going at 8 in Dynasty, 9 in redraft overall at the quarterback position until he strings it all together. Don't get me wrong. The year before he blew his knee out, he looked like I was going to be scared for about 15 years to come. Still haven't seen that same fire. I know there's the argument of look what he had to throw to. I get it. But until I see it, I'm not taking him as the 8th quarterback overall. Give me old man Rodgers that John doesn't like so much, who's falling after him over Wentz in redraft. Obviously, Dynasty, you probably got to go with the younger guy. But Wentz is my bust.
This is just utterly disrespectful. Not surprising in the slightest bit. You know, I didn't take pot shots at Dak other than tell you the obvious that he's not going to be their quarterback long term. But, you know, to disrespect Carson Wentz as you did, what he did last year was literally amazing. It was amazing. He had over 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. And his 2 top receivers were his tight ends. And his third was Miles Sanders. He didn't have a wide receiver crack 500 receiving yards of that 4,000 yards last year. Success in spite of. And now they add weapons. Carson Wentz is going to obliterate the league this year. You're wrong. He will outscore Aaron Rodgers in redraft. And he's worth more than him in Dynasty. And quarterback 8 is insulting to where Carson Wentz deserves to be drafted in either format. Whew. Make me be defensive. I was nicer to the Cowboys than I should have been. Let's double back and redo the Cowboys segment. My bust, as stated, one of those tight ends that led the team receiving last year was Zach Ertz. So they finally addressed wide receiver, and we have another year of Dallas Goedert. So I believe this is the year we see Ertz targets fall. He hasn't seen less than 7.5 targets per game since the 2015 season. That's just insane volume for a tight end. And I just don't believe the 120-plus targets are going to be there again for him because they won't need to be. With a healthy Deshaun, with anything from Alshon Jeffrey, with the inclusion of Jalen Reagor, with the other receivers they brought in, another year of Miles Sanders and Boston Scott are both plus pass catchers out of the backfield. I think Zach Ertz' reign in the top 3 is easy to say. I just don't think he'll be a top 5 tight end even this year. So I think we're going to start seeing the fall because it was largely target-driven what he's been doing over the last few years because he doesn't really offer much after the catch.
We've been predicting for a couple of years, so it'll be nice to see it.
Every year it's supposed to happen. It would maybe last year. Injuries again. You know, a healthy Alshon and Deshaun Jackson all year, and Ertz isn't seeing the targets that he did in 2019. Yeah. He was their wide receiver 1 at a point last year. Like literally, he was running wide receiver routes because they were so decimated at the position.
You know, I'm going to apologize, Watt, but I just, you know, you do your best analysis when I get you all fired up. So, you know, I had to get you. I mean, you were cooking with steam there. John, did you have one?
Yeah, mine's not a good one, but I've seen a lot of Deshaun Jackson love, you know, returning to Philly and back in the Philadelphia offense and all this stuff. His ADP he's wide receiver 85 in Dynasty. Obviously, a big part of that is the ageism in Dynasty, but on Twitter and reading other stuff, he's getting a lot of love. And for me, it's way too much for my liking for a guy who's the 33-year-old deep threat with a quarterback who we had mentioned likes his tight ends, likes his running backs. I mean, those guys aren't catching down the field balls, and not that Wentz isn't capable, but I just don't see Jackson being the reincarnation of what he was in Philly years ago. So is he going to have a few big, you know, games where he pops for a long one? Sure, but I just thank you for me. It's going to be few and far between, in my opinion. He is not going to even see that wide receiver 85 value on a weekly basis.
That's a good one. Say wide receiver 85?
Yeah, in Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, he's cooked in Dynasty. I mean, this is probably the end of Deshaun Jackson. So if you still held him. Hopefully you get a few boom games out of him. But I think there's value to be had in redraft with him because I'm not even looking at his ADP, but it's probably in the 50s or 60s.
All right. Well, let's keep this trainer rolling. Sleepers. Let's save the goodies for last. I'm sure Walker's going to hit us with the good one. So, John, why don't you go first?
Speaking of aging Philadelphia wide receivers, I went Alshon Jeffrey. He still, by default, we had mentioned a little earlier about this being a weird offseason for rookies coming in. I think Rager takes a little while to get adjusted. I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes their number one by the end of the year. But it's going to be slow rolling for a lot of the rookies, wide receivers, league-wide to start the year. Alshon, they said, might still be on PUP to start the year, right? Is he not going to be ready possibly? But he's still their de facto number one. He is 30, but he has missed several games in recent history. He's averaged 4 receptions, 54 yards, and 4 receptions, 54 yards a game, 6 touchdowns a year. Factoring that out over a 16-game season, that ends up wide receiver 33. He's totally off people's radar. Like I said, everyone's talking about Deshaun Jackson. Everybody was high on Rager. He lands in Philly. Alshon just seems to be the odd man out for fantasy purposes, and I think on a per-game basis, he's going to be fine. Like I said, what I'm projecting him for is roughly 40 spots ahead of his ADP, and we'll get back to that spot and that stat line as we go through another team later here, but I think he really outperforms that, and I think of all the guys on this team, he's somebody that people are kind of forgetting about, and when he's healthy, he's good. His biggest problem has been injuries.
Yeah, well, John, 16, 13, 10. That's literally Alshon's games played during his Eagles career. And you're right. It sounds like he's going to start on the PUP, which means 6 weeks. So best case scenario, we're getting 10 games out of him in 2020. I just think that ship has sailed. He's the big body wide receiver that, they crash quick. Let's say it's Burke about Des Bryant. Dude that thrives on physicality and not separation, starts getting dinged up, and before you know it, the dude's running routes on Twitter trying to convince someone that they should give him a 1-year deal.
Are you telling me there's going to be a role for Arcega-Whiteside?
No, I wouldn't go that far. They drafted better wide receivers in the 4th round last year than Arcega-Whiteside, in my humble opinion, or in the 4th round this year.
I did some digging.
They spent on him.
I did some digging, some sifting, panning for gold, and I came up with the 302nd overall draft pick, wide receiver 115. Marquise Goodwin's going to be my sleeper. Why not? Veteran guy come in and kind of fill in that Deshaun Jackson role when he can't play. And I think he's still got some juice left in the tank, and we're talking about Alshon getting older, but this guy's got a different type of game, and they can kind of last a little longer. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him jump in and get some PT and stretch the field for Carson Wentz and catch some bombs. Definitely want him in best ball. I think he'd be a great late pick, maybe even your last pick. No one's looking at good ones, so kind of a deep stash there.
I had him
Giants sleeper pick.
I had him scribbled down here too. I wouldn't be shocked to see him outperform Jackson at all.
Yeah. I said that's a drafting with Giants sleeper pick right there, Burke, in Marquise Goodwin, and I agree with you. He came out on Twitter and said he could still beat Tyreek Hill in a race today. Like said, he challenged him like in the offseason to come to a race. Like that is just confident speed right there. Who is an Olympic medalist, I believe, or at least participated. So no doubt fast, but to put that out there, it is respectful. And I like the addition of Goodwin because after what I had to watch in our wide receiver room last year, anyone is better than Arcega-Whiteside, and no disrespect to Greg Ward, but he should have never happened. My sleeper was Boston Scott. Surprisingly, either you said it. Running back 49 in 2019. He only had 85 touches, and they didn't come till the end of the year when they finally got Jordan Howard out of the way. He had a 5.9% touchdown rate. I said, will inevitably fall, but I think his touches are going to land him somewhere in like the 120-plus range. Mike Clay even had him projected for 127. So he's being drafted as running back 52 right now at pick 1107. So he's being taken lower than his finish last year, even though he's projected to see at least a 50% uptick in touches potentially year over year. And he's only one Miles Sanders injury away from extreme relevancy. We saw what he could do in spot duty. So Boston Scott, true sleeper, in my opinion. Get him for free. Have a ton of value easily. And he's going to return you some potential value weekly, even without Sanders being hurt.
Do you want some Doug Peterson running back by committee stats that'll make you feel better about Scott and worse about Sanders?
Well, I know them all, but you can tell the listeners.
Peterson's number one running back has only seen 35% of the team's carries. and 45% of their running back receptions. Looking at Peterson's averages, Sanders will probably get 154 carries, 33 receptions. I think he's going to catch the ball a little more than that myself. And then the RB2 has gotten 21% of all carries and 22% of the receptions. And what did you say Clay's total touches were for Scott?
127.
I have 92 carries and 16 catches. What's that put him in? 108? So not far off.
There it is. We are getting good.
But yeah, Sanders had 179 rushes and 50 receptions last year, and he didn't even start all 16 games. So, 229 touches is his floor.
Ceiling has been realized.
Previous ceilings have been realized. Miles Sanders will smash through said ceilings in 2020.
All right.
Continue the narrative, John. Just perpetuate it for all the people out there that don't know any better. It's fine.
I think we're on predictions, no? Was that part of yours, John?
No, I actually went with we threw his name out there a little bit earlier. John Hightower. I think John Hightower, as much as I said rookie wide receivers aren't going to do shit, I think that is still the case for him early. He is a special teams guy, so he is going to be on the field. He is going to be dressed every game. I think he ends up at the end of the year outscoring Deshaun Jackson, Godwin. I think he becomes their wide receiver 2 quite definitively heading into next season as the year goes on. So I like Hightower way more than Jackson and Godwin and everybody else in this receiving core. Even more than Alshon, actually. I just like Alshon at his ADP.
I'm more of a Quez Watkins guy, personally. But I do like that they made a concerted effort to add speed. So whoever it is, good for them. So my prediction.
I got a bait. Oh, you can go. All right.
Oh, no, listen, I think you had a piece of paper already that you were read. I want you to go. I'll wait. God.
Oh, I was just going to. Mine's quick. This is all it is. 2021, Dak has been finished higher than Wentz. There it is.
So next season is what you're saying?
Yeah, okay. This season, 20 and to 21. We'll be playing for the
was there a dash in the middle of that? I thought you just put your pen on paper. I read it as the 2021 season.
I did. And I was like, wait, that's not right. Let me put a dash in there. But,
listen, I'm pretty sure he's finished above him every season, if not all but one. So you're really going out on a limb there, but I disagree. So we shall see. My prediction, Miles Sanders, who was the PPR running back 15 in 2019, will eclipse 1,600 total yards, 60 receptions, and 8 touchdowns in 2020 and yield a top 8 running back finish. Total opposite of your unsubstantiated running back by committee stats that you threw up out of your mouth discussing Doug Peterson and the litany of shit running backs that we've had to deal with in Philadelphia since he's become their head coach. Darren Sproles was the best running back in Philadelphia during Doug Peterson's time.
Statistically, isn't Blunt his 1 year? Wasn't he technically the best?
Just objective opinion. The best running back he had was Darren Sproles, and by far the most complete running back he had was Darren Sproles. So,
all right. Well, we killed it with the Cowboys and Eagles. These next 2 teams, I think we can almost lump together and just knock them out. We got the Giants and Redskins left on the slate. Looks like we'll start in New York real quick. John, free agents, rookies.
Easy one. They brought in Deion Lewis and didn't draft a single offensive skill position player. And that concludes the Giants offseason.
Portion of the offseason review.
Done.
Breakout. I don't know. Sterling Shepard. You call that a breakout? I don't know. Walk, what you got?
Depends what you consider Sterling Shepard to do. Mine is Evan Ingram, who's currently going as tight end 7 at pick 704. I literally twisted John's arm virtually into drafting him in a Scott Fishbowl, much to his chagrin, because then he missed Terry McLaurin in the following round. So you are, again, welcome for both of those decisions, my friend. But on a points per game basis last year, Evan Ingram's 13.7 would have yielded a tight end 7 finish if he played the entire season. Now, that's part of the issue with Evan Ingram is he just does not play entire NFL seasons. But that 13.7 points per game was 0.2. So 0.2 points per game behind Mark Andrews and Darren Waller for a top 5 finish. So we know what his upside is. And he's still sitting down there at tight end 7 because injury. I'm predicting a healthy season finally for Ingram or for Evan Ingram. And I'm not concerned about all these weapons around him because truthfully, I don't think any of them are good as far as pass catchers are concerned. And Evan Ingram healthy will be a league winner for people in 2020. He has that upside to run away from the field if he can stay on the field. So I think the breakout is finally coming for missing it, Mr. Evan Ingram.
Yep, wouldn't disagree with you there. What about you, John?
You threw his name out there a little bit. I went with Sterling Shepard. Now, remember with Alshon Jeffrey, I said 4 receptions, 54 yards a game, 6 touchdowns a season over his time in Philly, and he's wide receiver 74. Sterling Shepard, wide receiver 56, 4 receptions, 54 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So they're essentially statistically the same over the last 4 years. So I think Shepard is the guy who can break out here at wide receiver. My man Slayton jumped on the scene last year. Tate was a little banged up or suspended or something to start the year, whatever that was. He has seen 10 games last year, points per game, players who have played 10 games. Did I fuck that up enough? Sterling Shepard has finished 24th, 34th, 21st, and 42nd his 4 years in the league. So he's never even come close to that wide receiver 56 ADP. He's always outperformed that. So for me, he should take that next step. I anticipate him being their main wide receiver this season. You know, Tate's got his role as a possession guy. Slayton's a big play guy. Shepard's going to be on the field and probably get the bulk of the work in the passing game at the wide receiver position. So I think Shepard takes that next step in year 5.
Yeah, I think the Golden Tate suspension was for PEDs, and he said it was for some, like, he was trying to have a baby, that it was like some hormone stuff that he tried to appeal it, but they didn't let it happen. So I think he called a 3-game suspension to start the season.
Yep. You are correct.
That is correct. I think it was more of like a Viagra supplement. But John, who's your bust then?
Keeping with that theme, I went with my man, Darius Slayton. He had a great year. He was a good sleeper last year. I was on him early, but I think his ADP has gotten out of control. People got all excited. He was wide receiver 37 as a rookie last year, and most people ended up picking him from waivers, unless you listened to me and you took him late in your drafts and got quite a steal. But now, I think the hype just got out of control now. Finishing wide receiver 37, and now his ADP's climbed up quite a bit. Looking at Mike Clay's projections, Shepard finishing wide receiver 35, Tate finishing wide receiver 40, and Slayton is wide receiver 47. So he's probably the third guy, as much as I trash like these big play guys like Deshaun Jackson. He kind of I think he's a little more versatile than that, but he kind of falls in that same category. And right now, with the other wide receivers on this team, the aforementioned Evan Ingram and Saquon Barkley, he's just not going to see the volume, barring injuries to Shepard and Tate, which is when he kind of took off towards the end of last year when Shepard got a little banged up. So I just am not taking him at that ADP. I still love the player, but not in a startup.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's kind of weird to hear you say that after last year, you know.
Still love him.
So high on him. Yeah. It is getting a little out of control. What do you think?
Nothing weird about it. It's the correct answer. That's what it is. You know, you had your 1 year at Darius Slayton while everyone was hurt, and check every other podcast and Twitter account for Darius Slayton stats with and without all the guys active. It's literally night and day. He disappeared when all these guys were on the field, which they largely weren't last year. We talked about Evan Ingram being hurt. We talked about Golden Tate being suspended. Sterling Shepard caught a couple concussions during the season, so it was a mixed bag for them, and Darius Slayton benefited from it. I believe it was a short-term thing. Darius Slayton is no team's wide receiver 1. He's currently being drafted as wide receiver 41 at pick 907 in redraft per Fantasy Football Calculator. And guys after him, such as Mecole Hardman, Jamison Crowder, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Reagor, Anthony Miller, and the aforementioned Sterling Shepard are all players I would easily take over Darius Slayton in redraft. So I will have no Darius Slayton. He is nothing but a late-round best ball guy, in my opinion. I got out from under him after his rookie season, where I only drafted him because of John and was more than happy to move on in the offseason. And I was trying to locate the trade while you were talking. Couldn't get there because it happened quite a while back. But I moved Slayton in a couple draft picks and ended up with Miles Sanders.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's an early first.
No, I believe it was too late first, and it was in this past draft, so didn't miss them at all.
As a Philly guy, you get to bring in Miles Sanders and get rid of another NFC East guy. It's a double win for you.
Yes, call that a true win-win. Yes.
All right, let's keep it moving. Walk. What we got next?
Well, we're going to sleepers, and Well, John was espousing the virtues of Sterling Shepard earlier. I kept him in my sleeper category because he's still sleeping. He was wide receiver 51 overall last year, but it's because he missed 6 games. He only played in 10 games, but he averaged 14 PPR points per game in those 10 games. I put if he can stay healthy, and that was bolded, italicized, and underlined. And Burke, I'm pretty sure you did an if he could stay healthy tweet not too long ago. So I felt as though I should include it here. I said that would have resulted in 224 PPR points, and he would have been wide receiver 18 last year. Just as a point of reference, that would have been better than Cortland Sutton's total last year of 220.9. So just Shepard is the perpetual if he can stay healthy guy, which I already talked about Ingram. So their top 2 pass catchers are only held back by injury. And outside of that, they're far and above Golden Tate and Darius Shepard, in my opinion. So go get value in Sterling Shepard in redraft leagues. He stays on the field. He's going to be their leading wide receiver, in my opinion, and he could be a top 24 guy with no problem in a PPR league.
All right. John, what are you feeling?
I went Shepard for my breakout, Slayton for my bust, and we're going to stay at the position with Golden Tate as my sleeper. Currently, wide receiver 72 in Dynasty Leagues, ADP 171st overall. On a point-per-game basis, last 4 years, Golden Tate has finished 29th, 31st, 16th, and 20th. When he's on the field, he gets work. He's a very reliable receiver. He's not explosive. He's not a fucking game breaker. He will occasionally volume his way into a really big game, but he's historically outperformed this ADP grossly. I get in Dynasty Leagues, he's aging up there a little bit, and people are going to try to get out of there. But if you're later in these drafts, he's very reliable. You're not ever going to plug him in and be like, oh, no, I got to use Golden Tate here. He's a absolutely perfect injury, bye-week fill-in, deeper flex play. I've always been a fan of him. I've had him in several leagues, especially in PPR leagues. You're never going to plug him in and be like, oh, I got to play Golden Tate. You can kind of shrug. You go, all right, Golden Tate, my second flex, that ain't bad. So I think he grossly outperforms at ADP. People are sleeping on him because of Slayton's year last year. Shepard had the draft capital. People were excited about him coming out of college. Evan Ingram, there's a lot of other things people are looking at, and Tate seems to be the forgotten man here. So give me Golden Tate at that ADP.
Just so you know, the trade, I did find it, was Slayton, 107, 109 for Miles Sanders, Ian Thomas, and the 2.01.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I liked it.
Not bad, not
How do you
bad.
get that pick
I was
thrown
going to
in?
use Daniel.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Going to use Daniel Jones as my sleeper, but looking at the ADP, what I'm seeing is a 14th quarterback. No, thank you. Especially when Roethlisberger is all the way down at 29. So I don't really have a sleeper on the Giants. I'll pick one in week 4 when one emerges. All the names, like we said, we all kind of know. So for the average Joe, I guess, listen to my 2 counterparts. They got some good info, but I have none for you because I'm not seeing anything on there. I besides Saquon, I am not touching anything up on this team. Maybe Evan Ingram, if he's there value-wise in any of my redrafts, but I don't like it.
I've read my fair share of Daniel Jones value in Scott Fishbowl, and that dude was like a turnover machine last year. I just don't understand. I mean, I know he brings value with his legs, but I feel like he's the type of player that you need to shy away from in that format. But it got a lot of people that he was like a target for them. I was not even looking at that guy.
Interceptions and fumbly wumblies. No, thank you. Not in that scoring.
Jameis Winston throwing up a 24 burger with a dash in front of it.
That was tough to see. All right, let's get on to predictions. In my prediction, you mentioned Saquon, and he doesn't fit in any of the previous categories, and I'd be remiss if I didn't at least wedge him in my predictions. And it was that Saquon plays 16 games and is the running back 1 overall in 2020. Over 2,000 total yards and 15 touchdowns this season for Saquon. There is nothing in that running back room keeping him off the field. John mentioned Deion Lewis and Wayne Gallman. Those are the names of the people that are going to be taking carries away from Saquon in 2020. So assuming health, he's going to continue the trend of running backs not going back-to-back with running back 1 season. So he will take the crown from Christian McCaffrey in 2020.
Hey, you might as well get Rashad Jennings back there as well to help out because no one's helping out back there. I like that one, Walk. What do you got, Divar?
So if I like Shepard, if I like Golden Tate, if I like Slayton, if I like Barkley and Ingram, then Daniel Jones should be a top 12 quarterback. But that's kind of chalky, so I went a little bolder. If Evan Ingram misses time, Caden Smith on a per-game basis will be a top 12 tight end. I liked Caden Smith coming out of college. I think he went to the 49ers first and got cut and then ended up with the Giants. And he looked good. Look, last year when Ingram did miss time, point per game, out of all tight ends who played 9 or more games, he was tight end 15 last year. And he's only going to develop more. Like I said, I was high on him coming out. I was hoping he might be, a 1B to what's his name's 1A in San Francisco, Kittle. But they obviously didn't like him, moved on from him. He ended up in New York and looked good when he got on the field. So he's one of my favorites. I snatched him up in a couple leagues somewhere, and Walk had mentioned Ingram's health. He's not the model of health, so Smith may get on the field, and I think on a per-game basis, that guy's a tight end one.
Yeah, I like Caden Smith. And doing some rough math right here is Caden Smith had 7 games under his belt and Ingram had 8. So that's not even a 16 if you combine the two. But we're talking about 110 targets between the two, 75 receptions, roughly 750 yards and 6 touchdowns. So there's value in that tight end position for those Giants. It's just a matter of who's it going to be.
All right. Well, I don't have a prediction for the Giants. I think they don't finish last in the division. They'll finish third. I don't have any fantasy predictions.
Bold prediction.
That's super bold. Let's go to the Redskins and knock this division out because it's getting uglier as we're going on. John, free agents.
Another team with no offensive skill position players in the offseason, if you count Kyle Allen coming over from Carolina, but I don't count that as skill. In the draft, though, they did take Antonio Gibson, one of our favorites, hybrid running back wide receiver in the 3rd round, and Antonio Gandy Golden in the 4th, who I did not like this landing spot until Kelvin Harmon now is out for the year, so that does give him a little bump now. But that was it for the skill position guys. Not much to talk about.
And I apologize for calling them the Redskins. I totally forgot. But they're in the middle of a game.
Technically, they're still the Redskins. They haven't announced anything.
Listen, in their statement announcing that they were not going to be the Redskins anymore, not only did it come from the Redskins Twitter account, but it came on Redskins letterhead and was signed, I'm pretty sure, by the Redskins. So it's been an abject disaster what they're going through. And then after that, the allegations, that have come out with that franchise, they are floundering right now, and they certainly didn't do them any favors as far as the players are concerned. To your point, is what did they do to get better? Ron Rivera's steadying influence as a head coach, but this is a bad football team. They just let Trent Williams go because he refused to ever play for him again. Supposedly, they can't even work out a long-term deal with that. I can't think of his name. The left guard, who's their best offensive lineman at present, because he probably doesn't want to be there anymore. Is Dwayne Haskins the answer? Who knows? But we all know that Kyle Allen isn't the answer, and he isn't pushing him off the field. So we're going to get a year of Dwayne Haskins. Kelvin Harmon got taken out early due to injury, and that's upsetting because I was big on Kelvin Harmon. 2nd-year breakout on this team. So what are we talking about at this point in time? It's just a bad team with little upside. So let's just, like Burke said, it's gotten progressively worse if we went down. It's a 2-man race in the NFC East. It's the Cowboys or the Eagles. That's it. And the other team, in all likelihood, is going to get one of these wild card spots. But neither of these other teams are going to threaten, in my humble opinion. So let's just go to breakout. And it's Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 29 in 2019. It's currently being drafted as wide receiver 24. So he is realizing a little bit of a bump at pick 5.07. But I think that number is going to rise when it's all said and done because there really is nothing else in Washington but McLaurin. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I don't know that I truly believe it. But with Kelvin Harmon on the IR and Steven Sims and some guy named Antonio Gandy Golden as his only threats for wide receiver targets, he's just going to soak them up on a shitty team that's going to have to throw the ball a lot. So I also wrote they have nothing at tight end, and the only wild card is Antonio Gibson, as you mentioned, who might eat up some slot wide receiver targets at this point in time. So there's just nothing in Washington. It's literally Terry McLaurin or bust. And my only intelligent thought would be teams should literally double or potentially even triple cover Terry McLaurin in 2020 and just take whatever paper cut deaths they try and absorb by the rest of these quote unquote playmakers in Washington.
I bet you, John, at some point, is Paul Richardson still out there, John?
He is a free agent.
Cut him. They didn't need Paul Richardson. they were doing fine without him.
Real quick breakout. I'm going to go Haskins, 28th ranked quarterback in ADP. I'm actually digging deeper on him because I still think even in Superflex, he's one of the cheaper quarterbacks, unless you got a Redskins fan, you can trade for or grab. And so I've been watching a lot of film, and honestly, if he has a little bit of time, he's got a good arm. It's just consistency, and people besides McLaurin getting open down the field is a major issue. So, but I like Haskins as my breakout. What about you, John?
Walk through his name out there. I'm going with Steven Sims. Mike Clay's projection for him this year is 57 catches, 613, and 4 touchdowns. Wide receiver 62 is where Clay has him finishing. Current ADP for Dynasty wide receiver 79, which is higher than I thought. 194th overall. And that was all before Kelvin Harmon went down, who he had projected for 80 targets. Those are obviously going to get spread around, so maybe throw Sims another 20 of those targets and 10 catches, so that should bump him up a little bit more. Ron Rivera's wide receiver 2 has averaged a wide receiver 53 finish over his coaching career, so I think there's plenty of opportunity for Sims. People are higher on him than I thought. I thought I was kind of leading the Sims charge, but his ADP kind of surprised me, but I think he takes that next step by virtue of there being no one else there to take it.
Yeah, he finished the season strong last year. I don't disagree with that. I think in a perfect world, Sims is going to lose some of his work to Gibson and to Harmon this season, but Harmon is not an impediment anymore, unfortunately. So I have to agree with you. Sims would probably be their underneath receiver for the balance of the season. Dwayne Haskins currently quarterback 28 in 2QB ADP over at FF Calculator. He's only in front of like some lesser knowns like Tyrod Taylor and Nick Foles and the like. So no one's on good old Dwayne Haskins right now, Burke. So you're shooting your shot, buddy. He has nowhere to go but up from there.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for recognizing that walk after our little boxing match early on in the show. Let's go to our busts. This one should be easy. And the only reason why is you kind of mentioned that tweet I made. The old Darius Geis said, "If I'm healthy, no one can stop me." So when you got a player start the sentence, "When I'm or if I'm healthy," that's not a good sign, and he must be listening to too many fantasy podcasts. So I'm gonna go ahead and say for the third or fourth year in a row, Darius Geis is a bust. He looks great when he can play or is on the field. I mean, don't get me wrong, but unfortunately. It's just one of those guys that's not going to happen. Was it like Lawrence Phillips or something like that back in the day,
Totally different reasons. If you want to throw out Lawrence Phillips' name, but
Maurice Claret, those type of guys.
Same totally different reasons. Both of those gentlemen ended up behind bars.
You know what I mean, but
that's it for Darius.
I'm just going to go, guys.
Yeah, I wrote the same, and it's funny. I would say Geis, but he's currently going as running back 34. It is at pick 705. That pick's probably too rich for my blood, but I don't have a problem reaching for that upside in redraft at running back 34. I didn't look any dynasty for these divisional breakdowns. You guys could probably speak to where he's at from a dynasty perspective. It's probably still too high because there's still a lot of Darius Geis lovers out there. But yeah, we lost 2 seasons of his prime to injury. And that just has to ding his value. But he's just one that I'm not taking him in the 7th round of a redraft. So he's going to be mine because Adrian Peterson's still there. He's going to get touches. The aforementioned Antonio Gibson's going to get some touches out of the backfield. And I think when they're behind, it's going to be Antonio Gibson, and this team's going to stink. So they're going to be behind quite often. You're just not going to be able to run the ball 20 times a game. Like Bill Callahan isn't the interim head coach anymore, where it didn't matter how much they were behind. He was sticking the ball in Adrian Peterson's stomach 25 times just to get through the 2019 season. So unfortunately, and I want to see a healthy Darius Geis in the NFL. I just don't know that it's going to matter in 2020.
What do you think, John?
I kind of went against where you went with Haskins. Quarterback 28. How could he get any lower? Oh, he can. I think he's not very good. I think this team is not very good, and I think he suffers for it. Ron Rivera came in, intentionally brought in Kyle Allen from Carolina, and said very early in the process, could be coach speak to get Haskins a little motivated, but He said, look, if this offseason's a little wonky and we can't install our systems, Kyle Allen will be our starter because he already is familiar with the system and he could come in and seamlessly run our offense. I don't think that that's bullshit. I think there's a legit chance, especially with the way this offseason has gone and is going. I wouldn't be shocked to see Kyle Allen start the first 4 games of the year just to kind of try to get this team a few wins to settle the ship, especially with all the additional shit they've had going on. So to me, Haskins at 28, I'm not interested at all. I get the dart throw towards, the end of your drafts, especially in Superflex. The upsides there. He has the draft capital. People did like him coming out of college. But to me, there's just too much going against him. I am totally fading him, even at quarterback 28. No, thank you.
Yeah, well, the NFL didn't like him. Didn't he fall to the back half of the first round? But Dan Orlovsky sure loved him. I remember him just hovered all over Dwayne Haskins coming out. And I think the dude has all the arm talent in the world, but I don't know if he has what it takes upstairs to be a long-term high-end QB. But
and the talk was
that Kyle Allen starts a game over in barn injury.
They were saying Gruden was like, some of the stuff that came out, Gruden was like intentionally sabotaging him because he didn't even want him on the team. It was kind of forced from above him. So, that's taking a toll on somebody at least a little bit. You know what I mean? A full year of somebody actively trying to ruin your fucking career. That can't be good for your development in year 2.
Yeah, listen, why don't you come out with me tonight down to the bars and let's go meet some of these ladies, Dwayne.
I heard Capri Bibb's ex-girlfriend's going to be out.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. All right, so let's try to knock these next 2 out. You can just give them both, Walk. You'll give your sleeper and then your prediction, and then go ahead, John.
We have shockingly stayed away from this position, which we are a very tight end friendly podcast all the time. I went with Jeremy Sprinkle, currently undrafted in dynasty leagues. His ADP is non-existent. Ron Rivera had Greg Olsen, who's been one of the best fantasy tight ends for the last decade or so. But Rivera's tight ends have been involved. They've averaged tight end 11. Sprinkle has nobody else to compete with. Logan Thomas is probably the second best tight end on that team. Sprinkle is going to, by default, get some volume as their tight end 1. Clay has him finishing the year as tight end 20-something. I think he outperforms that. I wouldn't be shocked to see him kind of finish in that mid-range tight end 2. I've liked him for a couple years. I've been acquiring him on the cheap for 4th, 5th round dart throws, just waiting for his opportunity. So if he pops this year, I'm going to have a couple good seasons in me this year because I've always liked him, and I think with the new coaching regime in place, this is what he needs. And the injury to Harmon obviously helps him. There's vacated targets to go around. And for my prediction, back to my man Steven Sims, I think he finishes as a top 40 fantasy wide receiver.
Listen, your Jeremy Sprinkle love has gone too far at this point in time, to the point where Burke had to get up and leave so as to not hear you discuss him anymore. And you brought Sprinkle's name up before, and I just listen. He was their starter last year. He had 16 games, 13 starts. Do you know what his stat line was, John?
I've seen it, but go ahead.
Okay, he manages Sterling 40 targets over those 16 games. What's that?
Boy.
Game? Oh, exciting! 26 catches. Oh. Man, nice 65% catch rate from a tight end. Not even that impressive. 241 yards and 1 touchdown. John, I know you want him to happen because we play in some of these deep tight ends.
It's a sleeper. It's free. You want to throw a dart in the 22nd round when you go 0 tight end?
3 years. This is year 4. Ship has sailed for Mr. Sprinkle. But I will touch on tight end in a moment. But my first sleeper it's Antonio Gibson. Distinct lack of playmakers. This dude is arguably their best playmaker, and he hasn't even played for him, and he's only had like 77 college touches. That's what I'm talking about in this Washington offense. I believe this is someone that they should be building around offensively. Throwing the ball as much as humanly possible, hand it off on jet sweeps and counters. Just get Antonio Gibson the ball in creative ways. I think he does truly have sleeper potential this year. And then we'll go into my prediction. My prediction is that Washington does not have a skill position player finish in the top 20 at their respective position. Don't think that's a bold prediction. I just think that's an accurate prediction. They're not a good offensive team. Probably the biggest shot at Terry McLaurin, who's not even being drafted in the top 20 at his position. So wasn't big reach. I just don't think anyone is going to surprise in this offense with any consistency. And then B, I wrote this before you went off on Jeremy Sprinkle, so I guess maybe it was just my subconscious talking to me and knowing where you were going. And I said that Logan Thomas is their top tight end this season. I don't think that's going to mean anything, John, at the end of the day. I just think his stats greater than Jeremy Sprinkle's stats.
Hurtful. All right. I like it. Good way to end there. I have nothing to add on this garbage pile heap of a team till they change their names. Maybe something good will come of it, but not really. Yeah. I mean, Haskins is my own.
Team name prediction. Team name prediction to close it out. What do you think they're going to be?
Honestly, the red tips or whatever. Those little planes.
There it is. The red tips.
Yeah.
It's the red tails, and I agree. I think that's.
Oh, yeah. Red tips, red rockets.
Outside pick with the red rockets.
The red rockets.
That'll do it for us today. Walk out of what's on next on the slate. We got any divisions left? Or
we are finishing with the West. One more week, and we are done. We'll finish July with the division breakdowns, and hopefully we're going to start talking redraft in August with the season seemingly coming to fruition with no preseason games. They've finally agreed to eliminate even that one. So we'll have no preseason before NFL games. It's going to be interesting with the injuries,
awesome.
with COVID, with everything else that's going on. This is going to be a crazy fantasy year.
Curtains for your late round sleepers. Those guys aren't seeing the fucking field this year.
Right?
100%.
Yeah, you better enjoy your what is that, OTA footage when there isn't any. So we will button it up there. Can't wait till next week to shit on them Seahawks. So that'll be fun. Remember to like, rate, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, everywhere you can. We're there. Follow us on Twitter at the Fantasy 40. For myself, Andrew Burke, John DeBari, Matt Walker, we are the Fantasy 40, and we are out.
Ow!
Well, yeah, the guy that invented, like I said, I was saying, I don't even know what the official chiropractic, whatever the fucking actual term is. Yeah, he's supposed to be like a old school snake oil salesman.
I fucked up my back. Then he took x-rays. I had a rib out of place, so he put that back. And then I went golfing on
What'd you do?
Saturday.
Did you fall down?
No, I just turned wrong and put a rib out.
Jesus.
I don't know.
I thought I was
on the
dead.
x-rays, my vertebrae were all fucking out of place. And he fixed me. I felt good, so I was like, fuck. I went golfing Saturday on the third hole. I fell out of my swing, and my back just went, brah. And I was like, oh, my God. So
You deserve that. You can go to fucking play golf within like a week of not being able to walk because you have a rib out of place. What do you think's going to happen?
I don't know. So I lasted till the 13th hole and finally had to quit. Couldn't do it anymore. And then the next day I woke up, and that's probably the worst pain I've ever felt besides, I don't know, getting bit in the face by a dog.
Yeah. I actually went to an acupuncturist. It was so bad. I'm trying anything. It's the strangest experience in my life. It was literally right before all this COVID stuff, and it was this Asian lady, and she's telling me acupuncture can fix literally everything. Anything in the world, including the coronavirus, can be cured by acupuncture. And I'm like, I don't know if I should walk out this door right now or at the end of the appointment. But she's like, get undressed, do this and that. So I did, right? And comes back in, and I'm undressed, and she looks at me, and I'm like,
you really go walk?
Happy ending acupuncture.
And she's looking at me like, oh, and I was like, oh, not supposed to. Not this type of undressed. This is just,
you went.
Undressed means undressed. I don't know where she's sticking these needles. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, so
we nothing but his cock sock on.
Yeah, we met in the middle, and she stabbed me with a litany of needles, and I walked away like that was just as strange. It was just strange. Like you have to lay there, like needles, like literally, like on the edges of my eyes, like can't move whatsoever. And she even said, it takes like a handful of times. I'm like, it's crazy. All you people that are in like non-traditional medicine say it takes a lot of time for your shit to work. And it's just, I got to give you like 2 months of sticking me with needles. This dude's trying to break my neck for 2 months. Nothing's helping me. But yeah, I'm dropping $100, $150 every time I walk in your door.
I wonder
crazy how that works.
Like, where are those needles from?
Right.
You know where they're from.
Are they clean? Like that's
probably not.
Yeah, they just share it. Fucking needles with the AIDS guy that went ahead of you.
Yeah, there was a bag that was opened, much like a needle bag would be opened at a Quest Diagnostics or LabCorp. So I had slight faith in the sanitary conditions of this place, but I'm at my wit's end. I'm going to an immunologist tonight. No one knows what's wrong with me. So apparently nothing's wrong with me. That's about the primary takeaway. I'm as healthy as a horse.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah.
At least your chiropractor found out your fucking rib was fucked up. When I fucked my rib up fighting at work a fucking year ago, that shit was dislocated for fucking 6 weeks before I finally went to physical therapy, and the guy's like, your rib's dislocated. I'm like, oh, good. I've seen the doctor 4 fucking times. Nobody had a clue.
No one took an x-ray? I mean, is it really that obvious when a rib's dislocated? Like someone could just look at you and be like, your rib's dislocated.
Yeah, the guy at therapy, the physical therapist, the first time I went, I was like, this just isn't getting better. That's why they sent me to therapy. And he's like, let me take a look, lift your shirt up. And he's like, huh. And he had me twist a weird way and went behind me and gave me like a fucking weird bear hug and a tug. And I felt great. I felt good immediately. And then I went back to the fucking doctor, the workers' comp doctor, and I was like,
you're an asshole.
Yeah, I went to therapy, and the fucking guy was like, hey, your rib's dislocated. So that's what's been wrong when I've been coming in here every week for the last 6 weeks. And the doctor goes, you feel better now? I said, yeah. He goes, well, that's good.
Yeah, Tim, the guy without the medical degree.
I'm like, thank you.
Diagnosed me.
Fuck. Starting with Philly, free agency, did nothing. Nothing on the offensive side of the ball in free agency. In the draft, they took Jalen Reagor in the first round, everyone's favorite wide receiver of this draft. Jalen Hurts in the second, which was kind of surprising. In the fifth, John Hightower, another wide receiver, and then Quez Watkins, their third wide receiver in the sixth round. So they hit wide receiver, backup quarterback, which was a little odd given, the contract they have Wentz signed to, but they locked up Hurts. So that was it. They hit the offensive side of the ball with those 4 picks. And like I said, nothing in free agency.
John, that was a great start. We're talking about the Dallas Cowboys. So,
son of a bitch.
I don't really know what to do from here. you were flowing so smoothly.
You were killing it.
I was so happy to talk about how shitty everybody did in the.
Yeah. You want to try again with
I'm glad you thought of the Eagles first.
You did say the favorite wide receiver.
Paste that and just go back to Dallas. Yeah, just cut it off.
I love strong edits right out of the gate. God, yeah. Dallas Cowboys, John.
Something about dogs' boners. I mean, they can't get them out of my head, but we can cut that out.
Not the only.
that will end it there.